Oh, well, hello there. Welcome back to CodyCrafted. Today, you're hanging out with me, Stevo. We're at the home garage on the weekend and having to deal with, let's just say, some more pony problems.
Click that like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you would like more content, follow social media at CodyCrafted on Instagram.
So what we're working on this weekend is this car, the zinc yellow 2002 GT 4.62 valve, pretty much stock. There might be a tune in it. I only say that because we can't turn off the traction control. And typically when you can't turn that off because it has a button in the dash, it's because it's been tuned on permanently. All right, so other than problem number one, which is that this engine bay is dirty as you know what, insert your own adjective there. Um, what happened, and I've got some of this torn down as I was determining the diagnosis, if you will. I thought initially maybe an intake gasket or an exhaust gasket. Essentially, we had a very loud leak of air somewhere. And um, wasn't the intake that I can tell, was not the exhaust gaskets that I can tell. Could get my hand up under here and I could feel the air in this area. So I checked cylinder number 4. Everything was good. Tighten that spark plug. Go to check cylinder number 3 and realized once I could finally get my hand in there after I removed the intake, the air filter tube, if you will, not the intake itself, but realized very quickly it was coming from this area. So it was either a leak in the intake right there, because these intakes on these Mustangs are made out of plastic, with the exception of the coolant tube, which they did upgrade to aluminum back in the day because of problems up here. So went to pull this coil and pull that coil out, and it came out in just absolute shambles. What kind of shambles do you say? Well, the coil itself looks like this is not a Motorcraft part, so it had been changed at some point. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a Bosch coil. A little bit of damage here. Get some of the sun on it there. A little bit of damage there. And yeah, okay, no big deal. However, look at the boot. It's just destroyed. Well, what would cause that? Well, if you're here, you know probably what caused it, if you're watching this video. And then you can see the spring linkage inside the coil. This is what connects the tip of your spark plug to the coil itself inside the boot. It's just this coil is mangled as well. Then I go to check the tightness of the spark plug, and you're not going to get a real good picture of this. I'll take a photo and add it to the screen. But if you can see, those very first few threads are just absolutely destroyed. Not to mention, it's been beat up. That is not what your spark plug is supposed to look like. The arm is not supposed to be touching the electrode or look like a Napoleon hat. So go back to the motor and put a bore scope down there. Looks like there's still a couple of threads left, but ultimately you can tell that this is the notorious spark plug being spit out of the cylinder in cylinder 3. And I say just cylinder 3 because I haven't checked the rest, but this is where the problem lies at the moment. I have checked 4, but not 3. Or not 1 and 2, and then the other side. So, bore scope down, cylinder looks good. I've got some photos. I can definitely add those. Bore scope doesn't take fantastic photos, but a couple of them are decent. And yeah, look down, cylinder looks good, cylinder walls look great. Thankfully, there's no damage there. But we're going to have to do the infamous spark plug repair today. And in doing my research for the best kits and the best process and whatnot, ultimately I landed on this. This is the Calvan Tools. It's called the Ford Triton Insert Installer, part number 38900. My research showed that most people regard this as the most thorough repair. I'm going to show you the parts here in a second. There are other brands. Obviously, multiple people make the thread insert repair kits, and they all kind of work a little differently. Some of them work similarly, but the feedback across Mustang Nation and probably any modular Ford, I'll go back to this thing says Triton. You know what? Maybe I'm not up to speed here, but I don't consider the 4.6 modular engines in the Mustang the Triton, but I do understand that maybe the Triton is based off of the 4.6 modular motor. Jump down in the comments and let me know. Educate us there. Always looking to learn more and more. I'm familiar with the motors that I have in my collection. It says Triton on the kit, but it will work for all of the modular motors from that era, the 4.6, the 5.2, and the 6.0, I believe. In this kit, it comes with multiple things, and a few things that stood out to me as to why it's important to do it correctly. These are the inserts. The inserts are steel of some sort. They used to be silver, they're now black. That was one of the things that was noted. Fully thread here, threaded on the inside. You may not be able to see that with the camera, but yeah, that's a good shot. But we have that, and you have 8 of those. You have a device here that helps you make sure that your valves are closed, because you want to make sure that everything is closed up before you start drilling into your head, because you do not have to remove the head to make this repair. One of the most important pieces, in my opinion, is this guide. So this guide's going to sit down in the valley. It's going to go right over the hole of the spark plug hole, and it's going to prevent your drilling and tapping from being wonky. We're not going to the chocolate factory. We don't need no Willy Wonky going on here.
How's the chocolate factory, Willy Wonka?
That guide will then make sure that your drill goes through correctly, and this actually takes out the old threads completely and will clean up that hole and make the hole large enough for the tap. So that is included as well. And then your tap. Your tap will go in and tap the head again. This tap, obviously, is for the insert. The inside of the insert is for your spark plug. So it's for those reasons that I chose to do the Calvan kit. Again, there are other options out there. I didn't memorize them all, so forgive me. Dorman's got an option. There's a few other people. In those cases, it's like a double tap where it tries to clean up the original threads and then it goes through and just rethreads it instead of cleaning it out completely and then rethreading it just for the insert. So I don't know, pick your poison there. The inserts go in, they are seated, and then you have to hammer them with an extension that pushes it out, and it's got little knurls in the side that is supposed to catch the side of the aluminum head and hopefully make it stay. But if you look at the reviews online, most people say that the knurled inserts, those kits, there's a couple that use the knurls that expand into the aluminum head, and they fail more often than not. They like to come out with the spark plug if you change the spark plug, so I chose to go with this Calvan kit. The other thing I like about the kit, if I didn't mention, is that it does come with all 8 inserts. So while this kit's going to run you $220-ish, depending on where you buy it from, it is available on Amazon. We can link it in the description. But it comes with all 8 inserts. So should we have any additional mishaps of this common mechanical failure in the Mustangs or the Ford Modular Motors, we have everything we need to repair them in the future. So it's kind of a large tool cost up front for repair, and then the parts are only 30 bucks, 40 bucks, depending on where you buy them. It does cover the entire motor should you need them over time. So go with whatever you feel is best for your scenario. As far as the replacement parts, we did go with the Motorcraft Platinum SP493X or the SP493. It does say that they are interchangeable. This is the Motorcraft Platinum. We do try to use Motorcraft parts in our Mustangs as much as possible because none of them are highly modified. And while you may have noticed there's an insert missing, it's just sitting on the new spark plug at this point. I was just testing, making sure threads, you can see how much it seats there. It goes all the way where it is so that your spark makes it into the cylinder. This is actually how you put it in once everything is threaded and tapped or drilled and tapped. Also going back with Motorcraft, the coils in it right now seem to be Bosch, so they've been changed at some point in the past. I'm going back to Motorcraft. The part number for the Motorcraft coils, DG508. And so there you go. We're going to dive in and repair the spark plug insert on cylinder 3. So stick along for the ride, and yeah, let's see how we do this on the Mustangs. All right, so obviously in preparation, again, I'm going to show you here where you can see it, but this is going to be the same. You've got your connector here for your coil. You've got these connectors for the fuel injectors, these gray connectors. And you've got this one bolt, 7mm, this one bolt that keeps the coil in place. Remove that 7mm, remove the coil. They are movable once you take this out, so you can, even though it looks like it's undercut here, you can still get them out without removing the fuel rail. You know, you could make your life a little bit easier in some cases. You could disconnect the fuel line here if you wanted to, but you know, hey, didn't have to. I've got that plugged off right now just because it was raining the other day when I was pulling it in. So you would, of course, remove the air filter housing. There's a couple of PVC lines, one here. There's one that goes to this. There's one that goes to this tube here that comes back over to the breather. Unhook your mass airflow sensor. There's one screw in the firewall that I put back here until I put it back in. That's about it on this car. On some cars, there are 2 connectors, so depending on your year. Then just take it off, and you don't have to remove the throttle body or anything like that. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and show you the insert first. Or actually, I'm gonna blow this out, so be right back. So one of the things you're gonna want for this job is a blowgun with a thin needle nose, whatever you want to call that. I'll show you more importantly why later. I will say that you probably want one longer than this, but this was all I could find at short notice yesterday at Tractor Supply. You can also hear that it's leaking out of this hole, not out of the fitting. So that's what you get for buying the only $12 item you can find locally at the last minute. So I'm going to blow out the engine just to get things cleaned up. And you're going to do this a few times. Ultimately, you don't want any debris making its way into the cylinders. You're going to blow the cylinders out. You're going to have some debris in the cylinders. That's going to happen because you're going to be drilling and tapping the cylinder head. So that's what that blowgun is for. Hopefully you can get down in there. If this gun is not long enough or able to, based on the angles I need, I do have an alternative way to show you that could solve the problem. I'll touch on it either way, depending on your need. But yeah, so now it's time to start working. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is you want to test for your valves being closed. And that's why they provide you this little air hose. Right now it's closed off, not providing any air out the side here, but you would open it up and you can hear it. So ultimately, it's only going to give you enough air pressure to test for the valves. If your valves are fully closed, then your device here is going to just kind of pop out of the hole that you seated in. And the hole is just the cylinder, the spark plug hole there that you can see. You're just going to push the rubber nozzle down into it. It's going to stay there. If you turn the air on and it keeps flowing, that means one of your valves is open. If you turn the air on and it pops out, that means your valves are closed. The other thing you're going to want to check for with your bore scope or alternative method, screwdriver, whatever the case may be careful, is that your piston is at least 2 to 4 inches down in the downstroke. You don't want it too close. Obviously, you're going to be drilling and you don't want to hit your piston. So if you have a bore scope, again, we use a pretty basic one that hooks up to our cell phones at the shop. I've got one at home. We've got one at the shop. I'll link it below to Amazon. Pretty basic, pretty decent, depending on how often you need it. No reason to spend a lot of money unless you're a professional shop. But even then, it does what it's supposed to, save money when you can. So I'm going to test for this first. If the valves are open, you have to turn the motor. In order to do that, you could disconnect the fuel pump, pull the fuse, whatever the case may be, whatever works for your model, and bump the motor until it's closed. The risk there is that you bump it far enough where it just reopens. So the alternative method is to use a breaker bar, and in this case, an 18 millimeter down on the crank bolt, and turn the motor slightly until your pressure tester pops out of the spark plug hole. So we're going to do that now. Okay, I don't know if you can hear that. Of course, my air compressor just kicked on as well. I've got a small compressor at the house, so it kicks on pretty frequently. But I've got this open now, and it's just blowing air through the motor. So I'm going to need to, that means one of my valves is open. So I'm going to need to turn the motor until it pops out. And there you have it. About 6 inches of travel on the crank, and it pushed that right out. So now you know your valves are closed. What I need to test now, I had already bore scoped this. Again, I've got some photos that I'll add, but what I have to test now is I'll need to hook this up to my bore scope again and make sure that, and I believe it is, but make sure that the piston was still in the downstroke, meaning whatever I changed actually gave me more space to be careful with, and not on the upstroke, because now I don't want to make sure, or now what I want to make sure is that the piston is not too close for me to start the repair. So we'll do that now. Okay, so we're going to use the endoscope here. This is the one I use at the house. It's a W400. Don't remember the exact brand name, but it comes with some lengthy cord here. Plugs right into your phone. It's got the iPhone adapter if you're on Samsung, or it's got an additional if you're on the old school USB connection as well. It's got these adapters that plug right in. And here's the car destroyer here, also known as Corbin. Say hi. He finally woke up on this Sunday morning after hanging out with his friends too late last night. Shout out to Jaime and his birthday party. Plug the camera into your phone like such. Just plugs right in. Go ahead and open it up. So you can see it's on your phone. And the cool thing about this is you can also take photo and video. And what I'm looking for here again is to make sure that the cylinder is at least 2 to 4 inches away. It looks like it's definitely down. Let's see. That would be there. So about 1, 2, 3. I get to about 3 inches or so before hitting. While the valves are closed, I've used the tool to make sure that that's the case, and the piston is down. So next step would be to get ready to drill. So as I mentioned, one of the things I like about this particular kit is it has the guide. And the guide will fit down in there. Will keep everything straight, as well as the flat space there kind of goes right up against the head to keep that from twisting. So we're going to begin by drilling that out. So I said I would tell you why we're going to use that little wand in a little bit. Obviously, you're drilling into the head. There are going to be shavings. So that air wand is to help us blow out any debris that makes it into the cylinder. The camera will help me make sure that we get it all. One of the ways that we will minimize that is by using a little bit of grease on the end of the drill bit. The reason you do that, it's just standard grease, is the grease will help catch those shavings and minimize what goes into the cylinder. So we're going to do that step next. Okay, so problem number one already. In this case, and I've seen, at least in other motors, and this is something that probably is specific to Mustangs and why I couldn't find any direct videos about this process on the Mustang 4.6. So I cannot get a direct straight shot there. So I'm going to have to go ahead and remove the fuel pressure regulator here. Probably that fuel rail here at the top of the fuel injectors. There is this little nub here. It's got a cap. Take that off. You can release the fuel pressure there. I've already done that. And we're going to work on that next. Okay, not extremely difficult, but a couple of things. So the studs that hold the rail on come out of the intake and those brass inserts. They are 8 millimeter. I'm going to put those back so they don't get lost. As you can see, I've got the fuel rail off to the side. You're still going to have spillage, so be careful with that. I'm going to kind of let some of that gas dry up before I do anything else. I did disconnect these two connectors so I could pull the fuel rail out without problem. That's these right here. They'll go back on. But now I have a clear shot. As far as disconnecting the line with the fuel pressure regulator, in this case, I used my 5/8 fuel disconnect. Obviously, I've got different options here, but me, that tube was about a 5/8, so that's the one I used. Okay, so I did use the air gun to blow that out and dry it up a little bit. I'm gonna wash this engine bay once I'm done anyway today. So, got your bit, and on the end, it is sized for an 1/2 inch. So that's what you will use to turn it. Another thing you will notice on this is that it has a pin, a dowel pin that goes through. And what that's going to do is once it's going to start about that far above or so the guide. And as you drill through, it's going to bottom out on top of that guide, so it can't go too far. That's why you need that 2 to 4 inches in order to not destroy your piston. So now I'm going to add some grease to the tip, and that is going to allow me to hopefully catch any shavings, or if not, some shavings that will not make it down into the cylinder head that I will have to clean up afterwards. And then all you're doing at that point is basically drilling out the current threads in the cylinder head. look at all that we caught that's now not in the cylinder head. All right, I've cleaned that off. You can see that. I just wanted to show you with that guide again. I'll need to put this back in for the tap, but as you're drilling, as I mentioned, you're drilling through those guides here, hit the top, and that way it only goes as far as it needs to. So, all right, I'm going to take some, I'm going to pull the bore scope back out and, well, actually, I'm going to blow everything out real quick that I can blow out and take the bore scope and check the cylinder. All right, I'm going to bore scope the cylinder. I will video that on the phone and insert that here into the video. Sorry for the, you can see here that that has now been, ooh, yucky. I'm gonna have to get that out. And that's the point of the blowgun. I've already blew it out, but not enough came out. I'll get some parts, brake clean down in there and then blow that out as well. But you can see now that those threads are completely cut out. And next we're gonna retap that. With that video I just put up there from the bore scope, you'll notice that still quite a bit of shavings in the cylinder head. And you saw the amount of shavings that came out on the drill bit. So if you could imagine all of that being in the head, then, or in the cylinder, forgive me, then, you know, just that much more to clean out. So I mentioned earlier, so here's your wand. At this point, this particular size wand was what was that, about 5 inches or so, maybe 6, maybe, nah, probably not. Really won't get down into the cylinder. And you can buy these things where the wand is much longer. As I mentioned, I just couldn't find one yesterday as I was getting ready to do this job. So here's the trick. You take some lawnmower fuel hose and you just stick it on the end and you extend your air wand for as long as you need it. It'll go as deep as you want it. And you get that all the way down in the cylinder. And now you can see it's just blowing all those shavings out. All right. Now, I'm sure that that's not fully clean yet. However, I will do the final cleaning and checking after we tap for the new insert. Now I've got shavings all over the top of the motor. I'm going to use our tool again here. Not for its intended purpose, but in this case, I'm just going to use it to close off the spark plug hole. So when I clean it off, I don't push any of that back down into the cylinder. Now, just to cover, because my son asked this, he's very inquisitive. He's learning, but not ready to tackle jobs like this. So he's been in and out, asking me questions, looking at what we're doing, paying attention. But he's like, why don't you just stick a magnet down in there and get the metal shavings out? Well, if you know the answer, speak up in the comments. But obviously, the answer is the heads are aluminum. Aluminum is not going to be magnetic, and you're not going to do any good sticking a magnet down there. So for those of you wondering the same thing potentially, that's why. All right, that's cleaned out. So what we're going to do is stick the guide back in. Much easier to do now that that fuel rail's out of the way. Everything's easier to do. Again, glad we're covering this for a Mustang because I could not find, there's lots of stuff out there about the mod motors and the repairs, but all the videos I found were primarily driven towards F-150 Tritons, as the kit says. But so I wanted to make a video specific to the Mustang GT. All right, the guide is in. Now, it's going to be the same thing. You now have your tap. You'll see that there's these two rings and you have a E-clip. The instructions say to put the E-clip in the top ring. Double check the instructions. And again, it just says to insert the E-clip into the groove closest to the hex head. This should still be the 1/2 inch, no change there. The E-clip does the same thing as the dowel pin in the drill bit, right? So this is how it's going to bottom out into the guide. Now we are cutting new threads this time. So what I'm about to do is I am going to spray a little bit of brake clean down in there just to clean the area. And I'm going to use cutting fluid, just enough to kind of clean everything out. And I have placed cutting fluid on all of the areas of the tap. All right, quick learning on the tap. The guide needs to be inserted over the hex end first. It will not fit over the taps. That makes sense when you think about it after the fact, but you do use the guide for the tap as well. I am the guide on. Now I'm replacing the E-clip like such. It will bottom out like such when it's done. And all right, make sure the guide is seated. Make sure that the tap is seated. We will start this by hand. All right, and not a lot of shavings, but I'll clean that up and put it back in the kit. But the tap is done. I will hook back up to the bore scope and insert that video as well. We should see all the new clean threads. There you go. Look at all them pretty threads. And I ran the tap through it several times, but it still needs to be cleaned up. It is now tapped.
I tapped that. Oh, yeah, you tapped that.
We are on the downhill. I'm going to spray some brake clean down in there. I'm going to use my extended air hose, air wand, to get down in there and clean everything up. I will double check everything with the bore scope. And once that's done, we'll be ready to thread in the insert. Be right back. Now, I've got everything as clean as I think I can get it. If you look at the video of the bore scope, you may see that there's still maybe a couple of small pieces in there that made their way into the crevice around the piston top. There's a camp of people that I've tried moving the piston up and down a little bit just to release it. Didn't do a lot of work. I did it a couple of different times, up and then back down. But there's a school of thought here that I've got most of it out. What may be left in there is aluminum, so very soft, as opposed to the steel cylinder. So most likely any small shavings that are left that you cannot get out 100% would likely just eliminate itself through the exhaust at some point. I'm gonna call that done for that. So really we're on the tail end here. So you now have the new spark plug with the new insert, and we are going to thread that in now. In this case, we're going to be using Loctite thread sealant. This is the high temp 592. So the high temp red Loctite for the new insert. So we're going to install that now. So first thing we're going to do is put some anti-seize on the spark plug, just like so. Thread the insert back on with the anti-seize on the spark plug. Then we will cut the tip of the Loctite tube. I know I'm off camera right now. I apologize. Grab the spark plug socket, just enough to start threading it. I'm not a huge fan of these spark plug sockets, if I'm being honest with you. Okay, and then just use a standard 5/8 to snug it down. And that's just because my spark plug sockets don't like to come out. And since this is way down there, you can't really grab it with anything when it's in the cylinder head like this. Just thread it nice and easy until the new insert is snug. I believe, I'm going to double check this here in a second, but it's about 20 to 25 foot-pounds, I believe is what they want it at. There you have it. That is in there. That Loctite definitely needs to seat and cure. So while I'm going to put the motor together, certainly test start it, I'm not going to run it too much until I know that that thread tight has cured. So I'm going to double check the torque and put it all back together. So double check the torque. The torque is 20 to 22 foot-pounds. I knew it was somewhere between 20 and 25. I'm using my 3/8 inch torque wrench, which is in inch-pounds, obviously. So 20 foot-pounds, 20 times 12 is 240 inch-pounds. There she is. All right, she's all back together. Don't really know. There's not really a lot here. The fuel rail bolts again are 8 millimeters. The air filter is an 8 millimeter mass airflow. Make sure you reconnect everything. Put on your PCV hoses. She's all back together. Let's start her up. Good or bad? Here we go. And there you have it. Again, I'm not gonna run it too long. I need to let that Loctite cure, but no more nasty noises. Appreciate y'all sticking around for this one. Sounds like we've got the repair done correctly. Doesn't seem to be running rough. Doesn't seem to have any misses in it at the moment. My table's now a little wonky, but that Calvan kit to the rescue, and it's got the, should this happen again, it's got the other 7 cylinders and all the tools needed to do this job. So appreciate you. Thanks for watching. Hope this helps, specifically in the Mustang setup. If you like what we do here, guys, please like, subscribe, go ahead and share that video. Definitely helps with that algorithm thing. With your support, hopefully we can continue to do more stuff like this. Not necessarily just customer builds at the shop, but really start to do some more fun builds, some stuff really of our own, if you will, and hopefully have a little bit more fun. But it's going to take your support. We really appreciate all of our subscribers. Like, share, comment down below. Let us know what your thoughts are, with this repair. Have you done it? Have you done it differently? Do you think I missed a step? Let me know. We're all learning from each other. I'm not the expert. Cody's the expert. So, but certainly, if I can do this, I think anybody out there can do it. If you're needing to do this yourself to save some time and money, especially when you're going to invest $225 in the repair kit, or a different amount if you choose a different repair kit. But as you can see, it seems to have worked great today. So guys, again, we really appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next one.